Behind every legendary company, there's not just one genius at work, but two. That's the explosive premise behind rocket fuel. Gino Wickman and Mark C. Winters don't just offer a framework for business success, they identify a critical pairing that can make or break an entrepreneurial vision, the visionary and the integrator. On the surface, this might sound like business jargon. But once you step into the meat of the book, you realize it's the missing puzzle piece most founders didn't know they were looking for. Think of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, Walt Disney and Roy Disney, Henry Ford and James Couzens. One dreamed in color, the other made it printable. One saw the future, the other built the bridge to it. Rocket Fuel argues that this isn't just coincidence, it's a formula. A visionary without an integrator becomes a frustrated artist. An integrator without a visionary becomes a manager stuck in monotony. Together, though, they become rocket fuel. Visionaries, the dreamers who see what others miss. The first half of the rocket is the visionary. The term isn't just flattery. Visionaries are the entrepreneurs who live in the clouds of big ideas, future possibilities, and boundary-breaking innovation. They're emotional, passionate, and creative. They're the ones who wake up in the middle of the night with a world-changing idea scribbled on a napkin, ready to change direction on a whim. That's their gift. But, and it's a big but, it's also their Achilles heel. Visionaries often get bored easily. They're prone to distraction, lack follow-through, and create chaos when they try to manage day-to-day operations. It's not that they're bad at those things, they just don't want to do them. And when they try, the organization suffers. In fact, one of the most uncomfortable truths the book drops early on is this: a visionary can become the biggest obstacle to their own vision. Their power is in the big picture, but without someone to translate that picture into steps, structure, and execution, the whole thing crumbles. Integrators, the unsung heroes who make the machine run. Enter the integrator. If the visionary is the rocket fuel, the integrator is the rocket. The one who makes sure the engines fire in sequence. The one who makes the math work. Integrators are masters of execution. They live in process, organization, and accountability. They're the people who ask, "That's a great idea, but how do we make it real?" They don't crave the spotlight. They crave results. They're calm when visionaries are chaos. They're grounded when visionaries are sky-high. They don't just take notes, they build the blueprint. But here's what makes rocket fuel powerful. It doesn't pit these roles against each other. It celebrates both as equally essential. In fact, it shows that companies lacking either are stuck. If there's no visionary, a company can become soulless and overly bureaucratic. If there's no integrator, it may have passion but little discipline. The best companies, those that scale sustainably, create a structured relationship where both the visionary and the integrator thrive. Not just coexist, but partner. Not just survive, but scale. The visionary-integrator relationship, not just business, marriage. Wickman and Winters don't sugarcoat it. This is a relationship. And like any great relationship, it requires trust, clarity, and rules. The book walks you through what they call the accountability chart, where each role in the company has a clear function, especially the top two, visionary and integrator. They must be defined, distinct, and respected. When boundaries blur, chaos erupts. When the visionary micromanages or the integrator oversteps, the system breaks down. But when each role is honored, magic happens. The visionary gets to stay in their zone of genius, exploring ideas, building relationships, chasing big deals. The integrator translates those visions into roadmaps, holds the team accountable, and ensures that the gears turn every day. This isn't just good management, it's alignment. And that alignment creates the rocket fuel effect the title alludes to, explosive growth powered by frictionless energy. Of course, like any powerful relationship, there are pitfalls. One key one: lack of clarity. Many visionaries hire what they think is an integrator, someone to just handle things, without clearly defining the role. That's a recipe for disaster. The book includes exercises and checklists to make sure both parties know what's expected and where the line is drawn. Letting go, the visionary's leap of faith. If there's one gut punch moment for most founders in this book, it's the chapter where Wickman tells visionaries, "You are the problem." It's not a character attack, it's a wake-up call. Visionaries often start their business because of a powerful idea, But as the company grows, their strengths become liabilities. Their tendency to chase shiny objects, change directions mid-week, or take on new initiatives without consulting anyone becomes a burden. The organization doesn't just need vision, it needs direction. Letting go isn't easy. The book compares it to passing the baton in a relay race. If you pass too early, the baton drops. If you hold on too long, you stall the whole team. The visionary must learn to let the integrator lead and trust them to do it differently. Not worse, not better, just differently. That act of surrender is what separates the companies that stay small from those that scale beyond the founder's shadow. This doesn't mean the visionary disappears. In fact, it frees them. Wickman lays out a framework called the Visionary Operating System that outlines what visionaries should actually be doing: culture, big relationships, new ideas, and strategic direction. Ironically, by doing less, the visionary ends up doing more of what matters. Finding the right integrator, rare but game-changing. Not every leader can be an integrator. In fact, the book goes out of its way to emphasize how rare a true integrator is. The ideal integrator is like a business version of an orchestra conductor, coordinating different departments, calming egos, enforcing process, and absorbing pressure from all directions. They need to be calm under fire, ruthless with accountability, and incredibly emotionally intelligent. Wickman and Winters provide a crystallizer assessment to help identify if someone is truly an integrator or just a good ops person. Because here's the kicker: a strong operations manager is not necessarily an integrator. The integrator isn't just efficient, they're strategic. They sit at the top with the visionary. They aren't just doers, they're leaders. Finding the right integrator isn't just an HR problem, it's a growth problem. The authors argue that many companies plateau not because their product is bad, but because their founder refuses to share control. And the right integrator doesn't just keep things running, they make them better. They bring scalability, structure, and long-term health. They allow the visionary to stop reacting and start leading again. When it works, stories of rocket fuel in action. The most powerful part of rocket fuel may not be its framework, it's the stories. There's the overwhelmed founder whose business was growing but drowning him in details. He hired an integrator, let go, and doubled revenue within a year. There's the husband-wife team who realized they'd been fighting not because they didn't love the business, but because they were both visionaries, and no one was integrating. There's a case of a visionary who almost shut down his company out of burnout until he found the right integrator who rebuilt the systems, empowered the team, and freed him to fall back in love with his company. These stories don't feel like testimonials. They feel like warnings and promises. This system works, but only if you're willing to embrace the discomfort of change. The rules of engagement: visionary plus integrator operating system. Once the duo is formed, it can't be left to chance. Wickman lays out a clear visionary/integrator operating system, V/IOS, to guide how the relationship should function. Weekly check-ins, quarterly off-site planning sessions, a structure where roles don't overlap and accountability is clear. Just like a marriage counselor helps couples navigate conflict before it turns into resentment, the V/IOS gives these business partners the language and rhythm to thrive. The most important takeaway here is this: great relationships don't just happen, they're designed. And the visionary/integrator relationship is arguably the most important relationship in any growing business. Get it wrong, and the company drifts. Get it right, and you unlock a kind of momentum that most entrepreneurs only dream of. Final thoughts: from chaos to clarity, from friction to flight. Rocket Fuel is not just a book for leaders. It's a book for people ready to get out of their own way. It's a mirror for founders who are stuck, scattered, and secretly exhausted. It's also a love letter to the unsung heroes, the integrators, who quietly make vision real, one system, one decision, one tough conversation at a time. What makes the book so powerful is that it doesn't ask you to become someone else. Visionaries get to be dreamers. Integrators get to be operators. But the book shows that together, when clearly aligned, something almost magical happens. The friction turns into fire. The chaos becomes momentum. The company doesn't just run, it soars. Rocket Fuel is about scaling. But at its heart, it's about trust. Trusting someone else to help carry the dream. Trusting structure over ego. trusting that doing less of the wrong things allows you to do more of the right ones. In the end, the question the book asks is simple but seismic. Are you ready to stop doing everything and finally build something that lasts?